Hi, everybody. This is 1,739 days since Richard was forcibly removed and murdered on Fort Bliss in the line of duty. That has been um, made official by the Department of Defense as of January 24, 2025. So this is, pretty recent development in this almost 5 year case. And we are the Gold Star family of Richard Halliday, the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier that was reporting on the cartel tied, military tied, um, heartbreaking, um, criminal trafficking that was going on Fort Bliss, and that is tied to the Walmart mass shooting case. This is all confirmed by evidence. This is not our conjecture. This is not our opinion. This has been confirmed by hard evidence. And we have spent almost 5 years putting up the evidence um, for for um, for the population, for the public, that they would know that this is cartel tied military. And I really need to say the criminal justice system there. Um, well, uh, uh, the cartel tied uh, criminal trafficking network that has embedded itself in our military, as well as the criminal justice system. And this is not an alleged opinion. This is absolutely evidence that confirms this fact that Richard's case is tied to uh, the the attempt to do what has been done to Mexico, as far as the Trump administration is saying, is proving, is evidence is showing that, and even the actions of President um, Scheinbaum, what she's saying is saying that the cartel has the grip on Mexico, on the government of Mexico, has embedded itself, and so it's become literally what Terrence, um, oh, what is his name? His last name, the DEA nominee, first name Terrence. I don't know why I remember that part. Um, but that he was talked, he was during the hearing, he was questioned by Senator Graham, and absolutely confirmed that that this grip on Mexico really creates a narco state there, a narco state. So, and this is the problem that we're facing, is that has crossed the border with these gangs, with the illegal uh, trespassing of our country, right? The open border policy brought in uh, those that would perpetuate or extend the narco state into our country, the United States of America. That's really what has been going on, and uh, the evidence. This is not something I came up with. This is what the evidence is confirming. And so, because we absolutely know by the evidence that, make sure I can see all the comments. Yeah. Um, and I know it's very late again. We're burning the midnight oil. It just can't be helped. It's a Monday, and Evidence is pouring in. More evidence is pouring in, and we have so much to share with you tonight. Um, but the the big um, the big message is that what happened to Richard. You have to understand a young European raised, homeschooled, um, clipped out of college math and German at the age of 15, got 12 credit hours of college when he was 15 just by clipping out, just by going and taking the tests. Um, and, played piano, traveled, black belt in karate, joined the military to serve, to become a criminal investigator. That's what he wanted to be, an agent, right? He wanted to be in law enforcement. The whole time he was just always trying to solve crimes. He loved to read books about that, to watch shows about that, you name it, he was watching it. He was reading about it, very curious about that. And that's why he joined the military. He thought that that would be good training in law enforcement, serve his country. He joined from Korea. Um, that gives you an idea of his travels. Um, and spoke German, spoke some Korean. He went to Korean language school, culture and language school. Um, and so at 18, he joined and became the Distinguished Honor Graduate for his cycle in basic training, and also he did it again. Distinguished Honor Graduate in AIT, did it again. Um, quickly uh, was promoted before his peers with waivers and earned 3 AAMs within 14 months. Um, and then deployed to Qatar, where um, he told us that the leadership was so bad, meaning engaged in criminal activity. It was so bad that he really couldn't see any kind of future in the military because, he had joined to um, be trained, right? To have mentors. And those mentors, the leadership was so bad, and he kept saying it over and over again, it is so bad, um, that he felt, he told his dad, I'm out of here. Rob said, okay, do your years and get out. Do your years and get out. And it was so bad that he started, of course, Richard's father, my husband, he has kept a journal as long as I've known him, and we've been married way over 30 years. He's kept a journal, and and of course, so did Richard. So did Richard. And so Richard documented the criminal activity and reported it. This is what set him apart, right? Is that because he was in communication with CID, was in communication with IG, was in communication with Washington, D.C., was in communication with the FBI, Houston, FBI Houston Division, um, or field office, and also with Child Protective Services there, um, multiple times. Multiple times that's been confirmed by evidence. And, he called 911 multiple times. So he absolutely was whistleblowing um, with accounts that he had documented. Okay. So that absolutely set him apart uh, for this narco state embedded cartel tied military leadership. And that has been something that we have been exposing with the evidence um, in order to get justice for our son. And you can tell by the Vanessa Guillen case of the family of Vanessa Guillen that when justice is not sought by our government and it is not accomplished, which very easily could be, very easily, there is no excuse to have these as cold cases or to be broomed underneath the carpet or covered up or whatever, however you want to say it. There's absolutely no excuse. Justice is absolutely right there to uh, give. And yet they have chosen a cover up. And that reveals that the narco state has embedded itself, that is clearly been revealed in the hearings there on with the DEA nomination for the Trump administration and others, so many hearings that we've watched that confirm that Mexico has entered into a narco state. That you can see that by the level of crime that's going on in Chihuahua, the amount of cover-ups, the um, the type of crimes. The crimes are getting more and more and more severe, very severe, things that you couldn't even imagine. And the human trafficking, the inhumane um, treatment of individuals, the level of drug use, the, of course, the weapons, because with the human trafficking comes drug use, comes the weapons, comes worse worse types of trafficking. And this has been revealed that those strings on the cartel are tied to um, hands of the CCP, which has been confirmed at in Panama. This is why Panama, the Panama Canal, is so much in the news and such a focus of the Trump administration. It's not something that I ever focused on, that I ever knew about. This has all been coming out drip, 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 drip. Um, and when you are in the situation, a Gold Star family that feels that they have not gotten justice, knows that we have not gotten justice, just like the Guillen family, Vanessa Guillen family, they are absolutely, her sister is going to run for political office. You get involved. You start paying attention to the cases. You start paying attention to who's doing what in politics and what kind of policies are being implemented, what's being embedded in your system. You start paying attention. And so the only thing that we have done is paid attention and put the pieces together, um, and then discern what applies to the Walmart mass shooting case and to our son's case, which are intertwined with one another like a braid. It's a braid, and finding those commonalities, the commonalities that expose what is behind the level of violence that Richard underwent, the level of violence that caused the Walmart mass shooting. And that's how anybody investigates and gets to the bottom of who are the criminals, and for to report them so that they can be indicted, so that they can be held accountable for what they've done. So, this is just a process of any family that is seeking justice, right? This is just a process. And uh, we were brought into this position very early on because we were told that we had to do it. We had to be the investigators. So, in the emergency at the very beginning, when they threw Richard off the rolls of the military and put us in judicial and jurisdictional limbo land, um, and told us that we had to do it, right? So we became the media for our son's case. We became the investigators for our son's case. We became, I guess, the paralegals for our son's case. And now we're ready to file the claims. Um, we have a few I's that we have to dot because we want to do this legally. Where we don't like to be. We've saw so much messiness in the Walmart case, so many things that just botched that case. Um, and this is our evidence is a slam dunk, and so we want to make sure that our claims are slam dunks also, and so that we can get justice for our son, and that everyone will know who is responsible for what happened to our son, and the handling of the case, the handling of a military soldier whistleblower being murdered on American soldier, I mean, American soil, on a military base on the southern border, by cartel tied, absolutely military tied, criminal traffickers that were supported by the judicial system. And, which means that they're cartel tied, which now with this new information leads to strings to the CCP. And I rather say CCP than China, because it is a an element, an embedded, in control element over the Chinese people that we're referring to, and that profit off of this criminal trafficking, and not only that, create an intentional destruction not only of Mexico. Mexico is absolutely amazing history, absolutely amazing. Anyone that goes to Mexico City, their jaw drops because it is amazing history. Um, and to see it be embedded by a narco state um, is really very, uh, it just makes you cry, right? It makes you cry for the people of Mexico. And this is what is happening in the United States. And of course, they came right through the front door. And the front door is El Paso. And that's why El Paso is really has taken the brunt of um, this embedding of our system, and it's very tied to Mexico, and and the whole criminal trafficking. And I hope that makes sense, because it's very important for people to understand that the Walmart mass shooting had a political agenda to it. And that political agenda clear, and I'm not speculating. I'm not, just coming out here with a political agenda myself. That is absolutely, even though I do have a political agenda, but that is not what's behind um, what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is absolutely the evidence confirms that the target was President Trump. So why was the narrative, and you saw it, I saw it, Beto O'Rourke did it, um, um, Veronica Escobar did it, so many did it with the white supremacy false narrative. And Joe Spencer, with many others, have debunked the white supremacist narrative. There, that is absolutely the whole racist narrative is a false narrative. Patrick Crusius is not even capable. He's not even capable, and he's not a racist. And his whole family, I mean, he didn't just randomly choose El Paso. He was living in San Antonio. He was, of course, from Allen, Texas. And anyone that's lived in Texas, including myself, I was born at White Sands, but I went to school in El Paso. I went to school in Temple, Texas. I got married in Killeen, Texas. I taught school in Killeen, Texas. My alma mater is Mary Hardin Baylor. Um, you know, I have a long history in Texas. And anyone that lives in Texas knows that it is a very diverse population, very diverse. And, you're daily in contact with a diverse population. But let me tell you what, the one thing that they say is, we're Texans. We're Texans. You know, Texas was its own country, and they have a Texas pride that I always compare to Bavaria in Germany. Because if you go to Bavaria, in Germany, they don't say I'm German, they say I'm Bavarian. And the same thing with Texas. They don't say I'm an American. I mean, they of course say they're American, but they say first and foremost, I'm a Texan. Um, and so, anyone that is there knows that this diverse population that has a lot of Germans, okay, a lot of, New Braunfels. I mean, there's just a huge German history there, but also a huge Hispanic population there. And yeah, everyone loves to go to San Antonio. Everyone knows about Tex-Mex food. It is not, uh, you know, it is absurd for the Mayella Crucius family to falsely claim racism when absolutely, and they do that because they say, oh, this border invasion, instead of saying the border invasion was a national security threat because they're coming through Mexico, which is controlled by strings that lead to the CCP. You know, come on, let's just, you don't want to have an invasion in through your front door um, that is being nothing would come through Mexico into the United States without the rubber stamp of the CCP. Sorry. That is what evidence is now showing. And so, you might think you have a president, they're sovereign. They always lie because uh, you have the Mexican president, Scheinbaum, saying in defense of not accepting the help from the United States to fight the cartel and their very violent um, uh, activities there in Mexico, very violent and very inhumane. Um, that she's not accepting the United States help for that because she's sovereign. Uh, you know, uh, it's very, very clear that the Mexican people um, don't have much say over their country because they're under attack daily. Daily. They are under attack daily. And so, if they were a sovereign nation, they would be safe in their country. But that's not what's happening. And so you have to look at the evidence, and you have to have um, what I learned from um, Van Til. If you read Van Til, it's called epistemological self consciousness, right? Know yourself, know yourself. And, we're in danger in the United States. Um, and I try not to be negative, even though we've been going through hell for 5 years. But, you know, Mexico is in real trouble. It's in real trouble. And now there's a president that wants to help, and that was denied. And however you feel about President Trump, what he has done is he has pointed out who's behind the violence, the violence, and the trafficking of children, the very violent crimes, and all of the substance abuse, the manufacturing of the substances, because used to be you'd have to work very hard to grow these drugs. You'd have to grow them and process them and everything. But now they can be made in a lab, and they are deadly. They can be made in a lab, and in the United States, we have a problem. Our pharmaceuticals come uh, from China, from the CCP, and so we're very vulnerable. And he has pointed that out, that we're vulnerable. That means our sovereignty is vulnerable, right? That our sovereignty, matter of fact, I think our sovereignty has is in question, is in question, and so it's being addressed. And the first thing you have to do to address it is to know yourself, epistemological self consciousness. You have to know what really is. How do you now want to live? How are you living? What's going on? You have to identify the crime, right? Which is the job of the DA, is to identify the crime, document the crime, and prosecute the crime. And in El Paso, one of the first things besides the media that they've tried to embed, or they have embedded with these individuals that are up to no good, is to get into the DA's office. Because without the DA, there is no identifying the crime, documenting the crime, and prosecuting the crime. And so you can operate just about with impunity without a DA. And so we have pointed out that James Montoya is not the DA. He's not legitimate. Yes, he was voted in, but he did not install. Just because there's a vote, there is a process of how to install as a DA. And he didn't meet that installation because he did not sign the anti bribe promise statement of officer to the people that he didn't take a bribe to get that position to be voted in, which is required by the Texas Constitution in order to protect the people of El Paso. So he didn't sign it um, uh, in time before the oath of office. And then he took two oaths, the 1st of January 2025, and then the 6th of January 2025. And when we saw that federal judge Guadarrama, which is Patrick Crucius's federal judge, that was swearing him in, red flags went up or your spidey senses go up. And of course, the usurper right before that, Bill Hicks, we thought, okay, that was a one time thing that you didn't have a DA for 2 years, right? You didn't have a DA. Is just sickening. And so, we're very happy to see Montoya win election. Not because he was our candidate of choice, but because it was an election, and he won it. Right? He won the election, and that's better than being an appointed, right? An appointed person. And so we, thought, okay, that's hard to do. That's hard to do. And he will install properly. But he didn't. He didn't. He didn't install properly. They can't. There must be a problem with this anti bribe statement of officer for them because he messed up really bad, y'all. He got that 2028 stamp. So when we looked into it, there was a tampering again. And anyone that says there's not tampering of documents has not been paying attention. They don't have epistemological self consciousness. They're not looking at what's going on. They're living with rose colored glasses on or something, or they're, hypnotized with those scoogly eyes, right? The swirly eyes. They're not looking at the evidence because evidence confirms 2028 is years in the future. It is not supposed to be on the statement of officer. And the whole document is messed up. The whole document, but boy, that 2028 stamp just is glaring, a glaring tampering of official document. And so there's no getting around that. Um, and it's clear that that office, and of course there is uh, evidence confirms that the office has cartel tied individuals managing that office. So the DA's office has become a narco DA's office. So you have the Trump administration and the whole discussion there in Washington, D.C. during the hearings, confirming that Mexico is a narco state. That's not what I say, but that's what they're absolutely giving out in evidence. Um, and now you have a narco DA office in El Paso, and you have a narco embedded medical examiner who is a judge. Okay, that's a judicial office. And it's a little confusing, and it took a little time for us to even understand it. But it is a judicial office because of their powers. When you look at what a chief medical examiner can do, it's like a judge. And of course, they judge the cause and manner of death. And they are very important for any kind of um, uh, capital cases. Very, very important. Not all cases, most cases don't involve um, um, a chief medical examiner, right? But still, in our son's case, it's very important, and we know that that has been um, uh, embedded with a narco individual. So you can call it cartel tide. You can call it uh, the narco state has seeped in. If you think of it like as a cancer or something, it's seeping in, and it's got a hold of the criminal um, judicial system, the DA's office, the medical examiner. We know that those that have controlled the payment in the El Paso criminal law magistrate court um, also have created uh, the narco state has entered into that court, because not one judge that sits on that court is legitimate. Who do they answer to? They answer to, Veronica Escobar and Samaniego, which is the county judge. And of course, with Joanne Bernal and all that connection, y'all, it's very clear that El Paso's in real trouble, like Mexico. And then now with the new information from Mayela, um, you have Michael F. Mayela being the federal courthouse manager. The federal case went through that courthouse with Judge David Guadarrama being the judge of the Walmart mass shooting, the Patrick Crucius plea deal. Okay, they never had a trial. There was never evidence presented. It was just a plea deal, and that plea deal was for hate crime. It was for hate crime with a deadly weapon, right? And 90 life sentences. 90 life sentences, that's almost 7,000 years that he was sentenced to the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Not to be confused with the Rock, the Alcatraz that President Trump now wants to renovate and reopen. No, this one is in Colorado, and it is just look that up. It's just jaw dropping too. The security and the size of that prison. But clearly Patrick Crucius, his entire case is botched, from his arrest. No bagging of his hands, no Miranda rights, waiving of the Miranda rights, no competency hearing for his severe mental health conditions and his severe autism. A long history where he failed kindergarten. He was not even doing well in his special education class, where he was even separated there because he would be hitting himself and everything. And I know all about that because I've been in those classrooms. I did a special education when I'm a trained teacher. And I've absolutely was in that classroom seeing severely autistic children not being able to even participate in special education classes because they were so withdrawn and would hit themselves, in frustration. We know his neighbors said that he was pounding his head on the sidewalk. This is the evidence. The evidence is well documented, and yet his brother, living in El Paso the entire time, while preparing for his marriage in 2021 during the federal trial, and going on his honeymoon and everything, with the manager of the federal courthouse, Michael F. Mailla's daughter, Alexis Mailla. So Patrick Crusius's family is right there in his own federal courthouse uh, plea deal of 90 life sentences for a hate crime, that, uh, here they were knowing that his case had been botched, that there was no competency hearing by a independent judge, to tell the world that he was not competent to, or whatever the findings were, right? And the findings, this long history, they kept the long history of his school record. Um, just his ability to drive, I would like to know that. Um, they lied on the application saying he had no income. Uh, Sorry, when you're in special needs like that, you have an income. Okay, you have an income because we are a very generous country, and special needs individuals get income. Okay, they get income and they get special programs. Um, so you know and I need to post that up. I need to post that up. But they said he had no income, that he had no expenditures. I'm sorry, when you're special needs, you have a lot of expenditures. So just the amount of lies is, uh, it just the evidence confirms that the case was botched, and that his family, being in the business of running cases, right? Being in the business of running hearings, running judges, managing cases, managing a courthouse, managing, is not bringing it up that his case has been botched, that the magistrate judge is not legitimate, that the whole way that they were conducting the case is not legitimate. Them parading him around the way they did was violating his civil rights. I mean, why isn't his family advocating for a fair hearing for him, so that the sentencing would be legitimate, right? You don't want um, obstruction and interference that will botch a case, that will let guilty parties walk free, right? You don't want that. You want the law followed properly, so that there cannot be some kind of uh, um, I don't know, where they can slip through the crack, and they could just walk free and endanger other people, right? So, gosh, and I have the right words, but I guess it's just late at night, and it won't come out. But you know what I'm saying. We don't want any kind of botched uh, case, so that Patrick Crusius could walk free, and his family, whether they have mitigating evidence or that they know that he's guilty, should have made sure that his case was legitimate and not botched. And it is so botched in so many ways, right? And of course, you have then the questions of Michael G. Mailla, and his position of the conflicts of interest. So not only you have Michael Sr. being a total conflict of interest, managing Judge Guadarrama over the case of Patrick Crusius, but the son working in the Walmart cybersecurity, the son working in the DA's office with Jaime Esparza, who had his own conflict of interest, and with James Montoya. And James Montoya is not even, if he cared about the victims, then he would have come out and said, this case is being botched. We need to do this right, because the outcome, the sentencing of Patrick Crusius needs to be solid.
It needs to be solid and it needs to be just and right so that it will stick and that he will not walk away. Because right now, even though they say there's no appeals, but because the case is so botched, y'all, it is going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. He's in the hands of the Texas Department of Criminal um, Justice, and they're already looking at it. So it is really um, because he's in their hands, right? He's in their hands. So the case is very, very botched, and you have individuals that have no no excuse, but that let it happen, and that in itself declares that there's something very, very wrong being covered up, and which leads to, because not only was Michael Jr. in the cybersecurity and in the DA's office, he was also in the FBI's field office that was investigating the Walmart mass shooting and Patrick Crusius. So the conflicts of interest just with the Mayella Crusius family is huge. And can you imagine how rotten they were to let Americans pay those kind of taxes, millions and millions of dollars for that case where they're profiting, their families profiting off of that. Um, and, and then they are letting the case be botched or withholding mitigating evidence. The fact is that they're holding evidence. They are withholding evidence in the case, and they're covering up. That is 100% because they um, were outed by the media. Um, uh, just like a little piece of nail kind of stuck out, right? But the whole elephant in the room was never revealed to the public because of the only way that the media withheld that kind of information, that Alexis Mayella was marrying Patrick Crusius's brother, and that her brother was in the DA's office, um, and plus, um, oh, gosh, I don't want to go down that trail, but in the DA's office, in Walmart, in the FBI, for a quid pro quo, right? For a quid pro quo, give me access, I'll keep it quiet. They're making deals off of the lives of 23, 24, let's count it 25 individuals that lost their lives. So if you want to call anyone a scum, you call them scums. You don't call us scums. We're revealing how badly the victims have been treated. And then, of course, the 22 that were injured. So, and then, you can see what are they covering up. And because of the timeline confirms that Patrick Crusius could not possibly have done what they say that he did. He could have been part of it, but he could not have done it alone. And you have evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and you can read through our comments. Um, if they are, well thought out comments, I just left them there. Some of it is like name calling and nonsensical threats or whatever. So I hid those, but because we need to stay very focused on our questions. Our questions are, what was the motive behind this cover up? What were they covering up? And we know that they're covering up multiple shooters. We know that. Who those multiple shooters are is a good question, right? But we know that they're covering up the multiple shooters. And and why did they do this false narrative? And that was political, to attack President Trump's administration, and also to affect the election, because it was 2020 was the election year going into that, and of course it was Beto O'Rourke and Veronica Escobar that were you know really um, putting out this false narrative. And they need to be held accountable for that, really, because clearly, they knew that Michael Mayella was, um, his daughter was marrying Patrick Crucius's brother. Clearly, they knew all of that. They know that's their business to know all of this, and so it really is. Um, they need to be held criminal. It's criminal what they did. So, and why were they attacked? Why did they have to do this? Why did they have to do this bloody mass shooting to attack President Trump, to develop this false narrative about a white supremacist, right? Why did these people have to be killed? Um, and, that's a good question. And what we know is that there were audits going on, there was investigations going on, and those audits were there at Fort Bliss, and it has to do with weapons, and it has to do with drugs, and it has to do with the cartel ties with the military and what they were doing in the human trafficking. And Richard was reporting on that. And so Richard was cooperating, and a very big part of these audits and investigations. And he was documenting it. So he was really a big part of those. And so then after the Walmart mass shooting happened and chaos hit El Paso, um, then they targeted Richard. They targeted, of course, Glendon Oakley Jr. and other witnesses. They erased a lot of the witness accounts that were on the internet. Um, they have their cyber technicians. They have their hackers, trained hackers. And oh, did I mention that Michael G. Mayella was a trained hacker? That he was a cyber technician, um, and so they have the ability to tamper with uh, the evidence because they have access. If you're in the FBI, if you're in the CID, if you're in the DA's office, if you're at Walmart, you have absolute access to tamper with the evidence, and um, and the evidence clearly, and the evidence confirms that the evidence has been tampered with. And that's where that picture comes in of this so-called man. And I've been told it's a certain person, but we're waiting for more identification for that. But it's not so much that man coming out, um, and the lady going in with her child, right? It's this timestamp, this calm picture of the front of the Walmart, and they're saying that the timestamp is tampered with, and it, that's an internal Walmart video, and that's just a clip of that video, and eh, you know showing the timestamp. That's what we wanted to show. So all of the evidence that we have, we wanted to show the timestamp on this video. And what it shows you is, not a crime scene. And it shows you that the time stamp doesn't correlate with the timeline. And so people have said, oh no, this is not Mountain Standard Time, it's Central Standard Time or whatever. But this is an internal on the camera, um, and because of our connections with police and this and that, they're like, this is really weird. This is really weird. This shows that there's an anomaly. And that's what we're showing. There's an anomaly. But what we didn't expect is um, the we didn't even expect that this picture would get as much attention. Tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of views on this picture. And so there's some nerve being hit with this this man? Who is he? Because my question was, who is he, so we can ask him, you know? Um, can we identify? Of course we can identify his face coming forward, his marks and everything. We can identify him. It's be much harder to identify um, some of the other people in the picture. So let's ask him what's going on here. And then of course, there's all like, oh, he people know who he is. So uh, so hopefully we'll get some results with that, some confirmations, some official confirmations. But I really appreciate all the information, the attention that picture, that snapshot from the video has created, because and I need to really put it back out there and just highlight the timestamp. And if it was Mountain Standard Time, that's really concerning. But if it's Central Standard Time, that's also concerning, because that's an internal video, and that needs to be. And it was leaked. Okay, this is another thing about this video. It was leaked. The evidence is so sparse coming out, because like with other cases, they give you the whole Columbine. They gave you all the evidence. Why is this case being sealed? And you cannot tell me that Columbine wasn't heartbreaking and devastating and um, you know uh, um, hurting our mental health, right? When you watch it, it's just heartbreaking. But they presented it. They present JFK, JFK being shot. They give you the video. Where are all the videos from the Walmart mass shooting? That's sealed. Why? Why is that sealed? That needs to be out. But they leaked this video, and they leaked very little, but they leaked this, and it's like, why? Why is this leaked? So I think because it was leaked, that needs to be, those questions need to be answered. And this is all, of course, intertwined with our son's case, because the same individuals involved in the Walmart mass shooting and the cover up of it, and I'm talking about in the DA's office, in the federal courthouse, um, in the magistrate court, in the medical examiners, right? In the military, the same, and in the media, the same, that have taken our sovereignty away. They're taking our sovereignty because they are hindering, they are blocking, they are jamming, they are gumming up, they're gumming up our system. And it's intentional. Okay. It is absolutely intentional. There is absolutely no excuse for Mario Raskin Ortiz not to be arrested right now. There's no excuse that Leilani Hart is not arrested right now. She should be arrested right now. And oh, and then of course Montoya. For James Montoya, he absolutely um eh, cannot be paraded around or reported, falsely reported in the media, that he's a DA when he clearly is not. He didn't follow the law, right? So is he above the law? I thought no one is above the law, right? And then, of course, the mess in the federal courthouse, the Mayellas, um, the mess that's in the FBI office there, in the field office of El Paso. There's no excuse that this should be going on. So, what it tells you is that this narco state is very, very real. It's very real. And so, what has gone on in Mexico is has gone on in El Paso. And that is why you see, oh, well, why is no one reporting with Richard or with what's going on in the federal courthouse and in El Paso, right? But yet, the first place that Secretary of Defense Hegseth visits is Fort Bliss, and the first really executive orders is about uh, our front door of the United States, right? And all of this shutting off the spigots is to shut off the money that's been supporting, uh, because they haven't done it with their own money. They are they are using taxpayer money to embed their criminal network, their narco politicians, their narco operatives into our system. And that includes our military. And there was absolutely, I call it a mutiny. I don't know if legal people can agree with me, but it's absolutely a mutiny that happened with the Walmart mass shooting. Okay, and in Richard's case, there is no excuse for the way um, General Mealy, General McConville, Lieutenant General Bernabe, Lieutenant General Martin, Clem, Major General Clem Coward, Major General David Stewart, General Garrett, um, Major General Matlock. I think he's a Lieutenant General now. Matlock, I'm not sure. Um, and more White, right? White. These generals. General Kelly. General Kelly, I mean, he is as dirty as can be. There is no excuse um, for their failure. We give them everything. We give them so much training. We give them luxurious training in the most amazing places. My sister was stationed at the War College. I've been to the War College and Garmisch. Um, you know, eh, Let me tell you, they get every opportunity for the finest training in and very well funded um, accommodations and in the most beautiful places. Um, West Point. You have Jonathan Ambrose going to West Point, right? Jonathan Ambrose going to the Sandra Day O'Connor High School. He is not just some con person. He was being absolutely um, trained to be part of this infiltration, this criminal network. And that includes these generals. And so, you can't, um, you got to look at the log in your own eye, because these generals were put into place by the Senate Arms Committee, right? By our own system. And they are absolutely up to no good. And they're absolutely in connection. You have General Kelly working for the Chihuahua governor, okay, that is absolutely known to be connected to um, the cartel network, and the cartel network having strings to the CCP. This is foreign and domestic um, uh, treason, right? It's being a traitor. He's absolutely a traitor. And the same thing with all the generals. There's no excuse for what they've done and how they handled this the what has gone on in El Paso, their command, their duties. They absolutely are failures of leaders. They're failures of leaders, and they're traitors, and they're treasonous. And that's just not me saying that because of what happened to Richard, but because evidence, y'all, evidence confirms through Kyla Cardona, who has also a connection to um, this picture, this timestamp picture. And of course, now it makes sense why she has a connection to it, because she was the assistant for Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. And she is connected to Leilani Hart. And she's connected to Leilani Hart through Eric, CBP, Eric Johnson. I love crack, Eric Johnson, right? With connections to employment with the CBP, and which goes to Christopher Michael Meissner, who was an attorney for the CBP and was um, lost his license, was disbarred um, in 2021. He was, reported to have stolen identities, right? So, and he's well known to be connected to Leilani Hart and to Kyla Cardona, which is connected to Eric Johnson, which is connected to uh, Fort Bliss. And not just anybody on Fort Bliss, but the commanding officer, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. So, and the tampering with Richard's file, the order to interfere with Richard's investigation. Um, that's what Kyla Cardona exposed. This is not me saying it. This is evidence confirms that um, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe gave orders to interfere and obstruct Richard's investigation, murder investigation of a whistleblower soldier connected to um, the audits, that triggered the Walmart mass shooting. So that they used to attack the chief executive law enforcement, right? Which is a president of the United States who can absolutely investigate this border uh, infiltration. It's his duty to do it. And he is, was their main target because he could do them. He could prosecute them. He could prosecute them. So, it all makes sense when you see why they developed this obvious, absurd narrative um, using Patsy. Uh, when you know that the target was the person that could prosecute them for what they found in the audits and the investigation with the criminal trafficking and the money laundering and the contracts, the military contracts. Because, if you are in these high positions, you have power over who gets what contract. And we know that the commander, Eisenhower, James Eisenhower, who took Lieutenant General Bernabe's place, ordered without any process, any normal process, the full renovation of Richard's arms room, the building, the crime scene, we believe is a crime scene because of evidence, because of the seal, right? And the seal number and all of that. The arms room um, of the building that he was living in, and without any bidding procedures, and with open checkbook, without any kind of limit to what it would cost for contractors to renovate an arms room. Um, so, and why would they do that you know, ups, to damage, to get rid of evidence, right? So this is absolutely evidence confirms. And I hope that um, it's all coming together so that everyone understands the motives and what the evidence is showing us. So thank you, everyone. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing.